Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. The Honorable Miss Matthew Agustine as a lecturer in the Teaching English to Young Learners course and all of my friends here. First of all, let's thank to God for giving us health so we can join these meetings. My name is Silva Pujiani and my student number is 212-102-001 as a moderator for today's presentation. The presentation is about storytelling to young learners. Before we start our presentation, let me introduce our presenter first. There are Devi Rahmawati, Diva, Aulia, Ilmani, Adinda, Fayza, Anshari, Tiara, Zahra, Agustine, and also myself. For today's presentation, the first section is the delivery of the materials, and the last session is Q&A. But this meeting is online. You can write your question in the comment. All right, without any further ado, let's start this presentation with Bismillah together. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The first material about why we tell stories in the classroom will be delivered by Devi. For Devi, time.
Thank you to the moderator that gave me time to present my material. Why we tell stories in the classroom. Next slide, please. Telling stories to students is a fun and engaging way to introduce them to new vocabulary and language structure. A relevant content for the use and instruction of the target language is crucial. Another way to utilize stories is to create a thematic unit planned around them. Storytelling introduces students to both their own and other culture while enabling them to interact authentically in the language. The story exercise fosters critical thinking, speaking, and listening abilities. They can be combined with subsequent writing and reading instruction exercise. Ultimately, storytelling is the most beneficial for young learners of English for the following reason. Next slides, please. The first is storytelling is an authentic form of communication. Storytelling serves as an authentic means of communication across cultures, allowing for the transmissions of values and traditions from one generation to another. It's a popular educational tool because it effectively teaches language while entertaining students with engaging narrative and repetitive structure. For example, the elder Pueblo Indians in New Mexico passed down their culture and values to the younger generation through songs and story. As said in Bahati 1996, children are actively involved with the storyteller and generally enjoy this traditional form of communication between generations. The second is storytelling introduce new cultures to children. Stories act as carriers of culture, exposing children to diverse cultural perspective and value. For example, various versions of the Cinderella story from different cultures offer insight into cultural diversity and similarity in values. For example, there are many different versions of the Cinderella story that can be explored using English. In addition to the Cinderella story, which comes from German and French tradition, there is Rhodopis from Greco-Egyptian tradition, Yeshe from China, Pear Blossom from Korea, and many other fashion. Next slide, please. The third is storytelling teaches young learners in an entertaining way. Well-crafted stories, such as those by Dr. Seuss, captivate children's imagination and enjoyable facilitate state language learner, they cater to young learners' short attention spans and encourage language acquisition through play and entertainment. Slattery and Wells 2001 point out young learners acquire language unconsciously. This type of acquisition should be supported by the activity you complete in class. Your greatest research is a story. The they provide kids with a relatable world of supported meaning. And the last is storytelling develops critical thinking skill. Storytelling aids in the development of critical thinking skill by prompting students to analyze, infer, and evaluate story content. James 1986 defines critical thinking as the ability to analyze facts, generate and organize ideas, define opinions, make comparison, draw inference, evaluate arguments, and solve problems. Through activities like retelling story and making connection to their own lives and cultures, students enhance their understanding of text and cultural difference. That's all my material, and I will give it back to moderator.
Alright, thank you, Devi, for the explanation. The next material will be delivered by Tiara. Time
Okay.
is yours.
Thank you to the moderator. Here I will deliver the material about how we tell stories in the classroom. Just like reading, there are various ways like shared reading, reading aloud, and guided reading. Reading aloud often involves using a book, pointing to pictures and words. Teachers can tell stories without book, using visuals, costume, and drama to make them exciting and make the story come alive for children. They recreate the story so that the listener will want to hear the story again and again. In order to be a successful storyteller, it's important to consider your audience and what will capture their attention and imagination. The more storytellers engage with the story and enjoy telling it, the more the students will connect and follow along easily. Next slide, please. As you develop your storytelling skills, consider the following points. Choose the right story. The first step to successful storytelling is choosing the right story. According to Kurtzine and Dahlberg, 2010, suggests that story that meet the following criteria and provide an effective storytelling experience for young learners, even at beginning levels of English. Stories should be highly predictable, be familiar to the home culture, have a high percentage of known vocabulary, include repetitive and predictable patterns, provide opportunities to apply drama and total physical response, and lend themselves well to use of visuals and realia to make input comprehensible. If stories meet these criteria, then it's possible to allow them to follow along in English without using their native language. Next slide, please. Once you have chosen the right story, the next step is to prepare to tell the story effectively. As Brewster, Ellis, and Girard 2004 point out, simply reading a story aloud to a class without preparation could be disastrous, with a loss of pupil attention, motivation, and self-confidence. Pupils' enjoyment will increase enormously if we ensure their understanding is supported in several ways. Pupils will also need to feel involved and relate to the story to aspect of their own experience. Alton Chung is a famous Hawaiian storyteller of Korean and Japanese heritage who used body movement, facial expressions, and voices to make stories come alive. This multicultural storyteller engaged listeners with his theatrics. This example of storyteller Alton Chung shows how important it is to use storytelling techniques that appeal to your audience. Some teachers some teachers feel anxiety over storytelling because they feel that they have no natural talent for it, or they lack confidence in their own English language skills. So, please, next slide, please. To make to make your storytelling engaging, prepare these four elements: uh, theatrics, props, script, and rehearsals. First is theatrics. Includes gestures, body movement, dramatic poses, character voices, facial expressions, and speaking slowly and clearly. And second is props, visuals for setting and characters, realia, mask for role play, costume for role play, hand or finger puppets, and PowerPoint slides or storyboards. And the third is script. Use illustrations from the storybook, adapt the script to learners' levels, create roles students can play, integrate songs and or chants, and prepare places in the storytelling for question and predictions. And finally is rehearsals. Rehearsals. Memorize the text, including questions for students. Use cue cards if necessary. Practice in front of the mirror. Record videotape yourself. Rehearse using props. And practice. So that the theatrics and props are particularly important as they help to generate interest and enjoyment in learners, and they make input comprehensible. To keep each storytelling fresh and new for learners, use a variety of theatric and props. When preparing the script, allow time for student participation and comprehension question during the storytelling to maintain high student engagement. Student can act out characters' roles in skits or readers' theater activities, and the script can be adjusted for different learning levels. It is vitally important to rehearse the storytelling before class. Although it's best to memorize as much of the text as possible. In the end, the smiles on the faces of your young learners will make all the effort worthwhile. Um, Maybe that's enough from me. I'll give it back to the moderator.
Okay, thank you, Tiara. And the next material will be delivered by Diva. Time is yours.
All right, thank you, moderator. I will explain about effective storytelling activities. So before that, effective storytelling activities divided into three. The first one, activities before storytelling, and then activities during storytelling, and then the last one, activities after storytelling. First, I would like to explain about activities before storytelling. The first thing to do is capture their attention. To really grab the students' interest, it is a good idea to use some visuals or hands-on stuff related to the story to make it more fun and engaging right from the start. Teacher can either make a background scene on a big poster board and hang it up, or use a laptop to project pictures from the book up on the wall or screen. And that way, when teacher's telling the story with the puppets, they've got this whole vibrant little environment set up to match between the engaging visuals and getting to interact with the puppets. It will definitely pique the students' curiosity and excitement for story time. The second one is connect to prior knowledge and experiences. It is really important to relate the story to students' own lives and experiences. This means introducing the main ideas, concepts, or characters to them first. For example, if we are discussing Cinderella, we will probably start by explaining the family dynamics, Cinderella, her stepmother, and stepsisters. And we would also want to talk about how the story depicts interactions between different social classes back then. So giving that background about the characters can help the students understand and relate better. Another approach could be asking the students about folk tales or fairy tales similar to Cinderella from their own countries or cultures. Next slide, please. The third one, there's review language students have learned. Reinforcing students' learned language before introducing a story that ties into the main topic being covered is a valuable teaching strategy. Using familiar stories like the very hungry caterpillar in the context of a unit on nutrition can help connect new language related to the story, such as food items, numbers, and days. With real-world concepts, the students are exploring, aiding their understanding and retention. Next slide, please. The fourth one, there's pre-teach new vocabulary or expression. Before starting the story, introduce new vocabulary and key terms to aid students' understanding and engagement. For example, if we are reading the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, we could show them a colorful poster of the house with the different rooms labeled. Review words they already know like chair, bed, and bowl, but they may not be familiar with room names like kitchen, living room, bedroom, and words like porridge. And by doing that, you will grab their attention, set the context, refresh their prior knowledge, and pre-teach the important new vocabulary. And that way, when the teacher starts storytelling, the students can focus on understanding rather than getting stuck on unfamiliar words. Next slide, please. Next, there is ask students to predict what will happen in the story. Getting students to predict what might happen in the story can be a really engaging and helpful technique. It is a great way to encourage critical thinking skills, and that can be done by the students simply write out one sentence stating their guess about the plot. Then the teacher can collect those prediction sentences and share after reading. For a lower level class, the teacher could provide 2 or 3 potential predictive sentences for students to choose. And making predictions like that can get young learners invested in actively listening for clues and thinking critically as teachers read through the story together. And of course, it is not a necessary activity for every book, but it can definitely boost engagement when used appropriately. Next slide, please. There's give students a purpose for listening. Before telling a story, it is a good idea to give students a specific purpose for listening beyond just enjoying the story. And that can help them stay engaged and be more active listeners during the storytelling. Next slide, please. Next is activities during storytelling. The first one, there's Q&A. That activities during storytelling can be used to check comprehension and keep students engaged. The teacher can ask questions throughout the story to see if the students understand the characters, setting, and plot. They can also ask questions to get the students to predict what will happen next. And here are an example of how a teacher can use questions during the storytelling. And then the second one, there's repetition. Using repetition in storytelling to keep students engaged and to give them a chance to practice language structures. Repetition can be done through call and response, where a teacher says a phrase and the students respond, or by chanting together. This is a useful technique because many children's stories have repetitive structures. For example, in the story The Gingerbread Man, the teacher could say, run, 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 and the students can respond with as fast as you can. And that way, storytelling becomes more interactive and enjoyable for the learners. Next slide, please. The third one, there is TPR, or total physical response. TPR means using physical movement to respond to what's happening in the story. That can be a fun way to engage learners, especially kinesthetic learners who learn best by doing. And there are some stories naturally lend themselves to TPR because they already have actions built in. For example, the story 5 Little Monkeys Jumping on the Bed has actions like jumping, brushing teeth, and falling asleep. The teacher can act out these motions with the students as they tell the story. And that can help students understand the story and make it more memorable. Even in stories that don't have a lot of action, teachers can still use TPR. And also TPR can be a useful way to make storytelling more interactive and engaging for young learners. The fourth, there is create your own ending. The teachers can use pictures to create their own endings to stories when teaching young learners. And that can be a fun and engaging way to get students thinking about the story and using the imagination. And after telling the story, the teacher can ask students to predict the ending. Then the teacher can show students some pictures and ask them to create an ending that goes with each pictures. And for lower level students, the teacher can provide pictures of different endings and have the students create sentences to describe each ending. That can help students develop their creative thinking and storytelling skills. Next slide, please. Then we move to activities after storytelling. The first one, there is checking prediction. After reading a story, the teacher can check if students' predictions were accurate by asking them to explain or show their depictions. And then the second one, there is group retelling. The teacher can group students to retell the story collaboratively through speaking parts, acting, and filling gaps if needed. Next slide, please. The third one, there's games. Games are a fun way to check students' comprehension of a story. Playing interactive games like Start and Stop can enhance students' comprehension by engaging them in finding story mistakes made by the teacher. And then the last one, there is storyboarding. That involves having students draw a series of pictures that show the main events of the story, like a comic strip. The teacher can provide a template with blank boxes that students can fill in, just like in these pictures. I think that's enough from me. The next material will be delivered by Adinda.
Okay, so I will explain the next slide, which is about designing a lesson with storytelling. And an example of lesson planning here we use is a story called A Big Lesson for a Little Frog. So here we have the first one, of course, as usual, we plan for like objectives and the materials that we might use in the learning activities. So the first one we decided like what skill that we want to teach to the student, and then the language that we might use a lot like in this lesson plan. It would be about vocabulary, like the animals, animal action and expression, and also the objectives. By the end of the lesson, student will be able to explain what animals can and cannot do. And then the materials that we might use in this learning activities is puppets, background scenes, which includes the tree, flashcard, and also words cards. So in the first activity, which is warm up, we can do the activities by capture the student attention. So we can do like a stick puppet and then introduce new friend little frog to the class. You can act as a teacher, or you can also act as the frog itself. And then other activity that we can do in the warm up is connect to the prior knowledge and experience. So we can like go to the page of the storybook, and then you can ask your student like, frog has some animals friends. What animals do we know? And then you can make an animal with pictures and or text, and then you can use flashcard to review animals. When the student names an animals, you can put the flashcard on the board in the web. And this activity also you can say as a review language students have learned. And then other activity that we can do is to pre-teach new vocabulary or expression. So we can, so as a student, like how do this animal move, and do a TPR activity to teach different action. Like you can use words or verb in the story, like in this case. In this case, like swing, fly, hop, swim, and then you can use word cards for each movement, and then show the word card with each movement. And then other activity you can do is that you can ask students to predict what will happen in the story. So you can show the little frog puppet in the background with a tree, and then using the puppet. And then you ask your student, he can act as a frog, or you can act as a teacher, and then you go through each action like fly, reach to the top of the tree, hop, swim, and etc. As you ask question as the little frog and the teacher put the word card for swing, fly, hop, swim, and etc. on the board in a T chart. And then for each action, put a check if students say yes, and then X if they say no. And then other activity that you can do is to give student a purpose for listening. So by pointing at the T chart, you can say, let's listen to the story and see what little frog can and cannot do. And then the next one is the presentation activities, which is doing storytelling activities. You can do storytelling with the puppets. You can do the use puppets and the background, use different voices for each animal and show the movements with your body. And then you can do the activity, listen and respond, or TPR. So what you can do is to tell your student when you hear an animal do the action as you say frog, you can do first fist hop on the hand twice, and if I say monkey, you can do a movement with hand moving toward armpit twice. And if I say parrot, you can make wings with hand flap twice. And if I say giraffe, you can hold arms up, then make the head with hands. And then second storytelling you can do is tell your student when you hear action, then do it and point to the words on the teacher like swing, fly, hop, and etc. And then practice once. And then other activity is practice, which is after storytelling activities. What you can do is to check prediction or do the Q&A session. So in this activity, you can do the pair work Q&A to check prediction. So you put your student in pairs, partner A and partner B for each section. For each action on the teacher, tell partner A to ask partner B, and then partner B has to answer yes he can or no he can, and then switch roles. And after the pair work, ask students to confirm each prediction on the T chart and check off to connect answer to confirm their prediction. Another activity that you can do is storyboarding or group retelling. So you can do the storyboard jigsaw. First, prepare a large storyboard with picture of the different scene in the story, and in the sense of the animals have speech bubbles. So first student put them in order, and then together with the student retell the story, and then works with the student to write the dialogues in the speech bubble, and then student copy the storyboard picture and text in speech bubbles on their own paper. And the next activity you can do is application after storytelling activity. So the first one you can do is make a mini books or personalized parallel story. So you can ask students to make many books about themselves, and they should be the main character instead of the little frog. And other characters can be anyone, like their sibling, their friend, their parents, grandparents, neighbor, or teacher. And then the next step is for assessment. You can do monitor progress. So you can walk around the classroom and give one-on-one assistance to the student who are struggling to finish their mini books. And then you can collect the books. So you can collect mini books when they are finished and give student feedback. And the last activity is follow up. So you can give your student homework. For example, you ask your student to continue working on the mini books about themselves at home and at the beginning of the next class if necessary. And then in the next class, you can ask a few students to volunteer to share their mini book stories and doing a short storytelling using the picture in their mini book to help tell their story. So I think that's all for me. The next material will be offered by Silva.
Okay, thank you, Adinda. Here I will deliver the last material about storytelling for young learners from teacher to teacher. Next slide, please. Okay, as you can see in this explanation, there are various opinions of teachers from several countries who explain their experiences using storytelling in the classroom. Most teachers find storytelling to be a very effective way to engage learners in real language. Let's start with one teacher in Poland. Ursula said she uses drawings and paintings to show the characters and feelings of the story. And she also asked students to create their own endings through pictures. Both methods aim to make students feel like real characters in the story. With this method, she believes that students will be able to more easily get the essence and message of the story. Next, to Costa Rica, according to Roxanne, initially storytelling was not used in any of her lessons, but the students liked it, so she had to include storytelling in one unit of her class. To create a fun class in storytelling, she also uses repetitive phrases for students to join in the activity. To respond to the ideas expressed by Ursula and Roxanne, a teacher from Uzbekistan emphasized the importance of preparation for effective storytelling. Victoria believes that many of the difficulties teachers face when telling stories are caused by a lack of proper learning preparation. So she said that in storytelling, teachers must prepare lesson plans in advance, provide language support, and connect activity logically, and explain the purpose of storytelling to students. This third preparation is the key to getting a conducive storytelling class. Next slide, please. Thank you. Every teacher has to develop his or her own approach and be creative to engage young learners in storytelling activities. Here is an approach taken by several teachers. The first one is engaging learners with technology. According to a teacher from Jordan, Faisal Shamali state, in telling stories, teachers can present the story using PowerPoint presentations with cartoon images, animation, and sound. Also, teachers can encourage students to interact and become characters. Next are the seating arrangements for storytelling. According to Anna, in storytelling, a teacher can arrange students in a semicircle to ensure visibility. Use a special corner or open space for storytelling, and also signal story time with a song, chant, and accessory. And the last one is incorporating cultural traditions. According to Zodwa, in storytelling, teachers can draw the story from the oral tales traditions of the Muni culture with a semicircular arrangement with mats on the floor, and also emulate the front stage setting of a theater. From all the opinions of these teachers, we can imitate and adapt what they do in implementing storytelling for young learners. All right, the delivery of the material has been complete. Let's move to the Q&A session. For everyone, you have a question, please feel free to write your question in the comments or in chat in the group WhatsApp. Alhamdulillah, the presentation has been done. The conclusion is storytelling in English education is engaging and culturally enriching. It fosters critical thinking by connecting stories to students' lives and promotes language development. Teachers should carefully prepare their storytelling performance and incorporate pre, during, and post-storytelling activities to enhance comprehension and language practice. Additionally, storytelling can serve as a focal point for thematic learning, integrating language skills and encouraging communication among students over an extended period. Thank you, presenters, for the informative explanation, and also thank you everyone for watching our presentation. I hope you found this presentation to be informative. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.